It was a grueling pace. It was like the Oregon Trail, and you just put it on the fastest mode the whole way, and then the wheels fall. You forged the river and died.
The Oregon Trail, that's awesome.
So your wagon wheels are all busted, and you got dysentery.
Welcome to TapThatAZ, the show that helps you find the best places in Arizona to get a craft beverage and meet the awesome people behind these places. I'm your host, Eric Walters. In this episode, I sit down with Dave and Jason from the Shop Beer Company in Tempe that was actually just named the best new brewery in Arizona by ratebeer.com. Grab a drink and let's tap into the Shop Beer Company. All right, so I'm here with the dudes from the Shop Beer Company. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
This is pretty awesome. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Name, what do you guys do here?
My name is Jason, and I do whatever. Whatever needs to be done.
It's Jason Calhoun, actually.
Yeah, so now you gave away my name.
Right.
People are going to Google me now.
The veil has been lifted.
Yeah.
Right.
I do all the cold brewing, and then I assist Matt, our head brewer, on brew days, kegging days, all those fun cleaning days.
Okay.
And all the other stuff that goes on around here.
You're also chief beard producer?
Beard, yes. You guys
Love
are
the
just jealous
beard.
you can't grow them. But go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I am the
Beardless
non-bearded
wonder.
David Arns.
Yeah.
I'm one of the owners here and sort of chief of paperwork.
The chief of paperwork.
And a handsome fellow. Don't forget that.
Handsome fellow, yeah. It is rare that you don't have the beard, though. That's is it lack of
We're going to start
ability?
off with a sore subject today, aren't we?
Yeah.
He's working on it.
I don't know, when they start making Rogaine for beards, then I'm in.
Right. Yeah, I don't. This is like a week's growth for me too, so I'm not quite there yet either.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a baby face.
That's all right.
So
That's all right, man. So this place is. I love this place. So
it's my cross to bear.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, just this facility. I love it. So it's two buildings. You have the tasting room in the front, and then you guys got a really cool patio. But then there's this big building in the back. So tell me about like just the place.
Well, this one is kind of a diamond in the rough scenario because, when we'd started, we were just a half barrel system in the back of a coffee shop, and sort of grew as space would allow. And so when we were about three years in to doing this kind of beer experiment, and had the opportunity to say, let's go look for a real place. Like, let's look for something that we can have for a while.
Right.
And so like you do, you go out and you kind of have these high hopes of, you dream up the biggest system you think you can afford, and you're trying to shop the catalogs and whatever else. And, inevitably you find out there's just not that many opportunities. You can't have everything, right?
Right.
You're like, okay, well, where do I start cutting back on my dream so that I can get it done? You can't, the perfect building in the perfect location that fits the gear that you want and can afford. All those things have to converge. And it's a miracle anybody gets it accomplished because there's just so many unknowns. But so we started shopping around in Tempe. We knew we wanted to stay in Tempe as probably about as close to our original location as we could, just because that's always been home.
Right, and it was Cartel, right? Cartel Coffee was your...
Yeah, so it started as Cartel Coffee, and then we created a little sub-company, Cartel Brewery, and through Cartel, which I was one of the owners of that company as well.
Okay.
At that time, we had done a lot of different projects, and we had opened a bakery and a commissary and a series of shops, and you have various successes and failures, and one of the you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough,
Right, yeah.
So I mean that in a good way. So we kind of as a team originally had this idea to do the brewery, but then it was really magnetic for a certain group of folks right away.
Okay.
So
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you sit around with your buddies and you have an idea and you're like, hey, let's see if we can open a cotton candy machine, whatever. I don't know what you dream of at night, but I dream of
cotton candy.
Who doesn't?
Sure, you get the nail on the head.
But you sit around and say, hey, let's try something, and it's easy to get excited at the beginning. It's easy to sit around and have a fresh idea and say, dude, that sounds rad. especially when you've got ADD like all of us do. Right? You're like, let's try something, let's try something different. And then you get this spectrum of people that some people are really excited for a short period of time, and some can stick with it for a little while, 6 months. Hey, this is kind of getting old, and when is this going to become glamorous?
Right.
And then some people are just that die hard, there every day. I'm never giving this up. This is now part of the fabric of what I am and what I'm doing, and it becomes part of your story.
Nice.
And so that played out for us, and I'd say within the first 6 months, it was pretty obvious who was wanting this to be a career, like a lifetime thing, and then how it was just fun versus how it was like life-changing.
Yeah.
So then that team of guys that were there for that inception that's still our team.
Nice.
And so we're, in terms of the brain space, we're 5 years old this month.
Okay.
And we'll celebrate our 4th official open birth, because it took us a year to get open.
Okay.
So we're 4 years old this month.
The shop beer company?
Our company. This location's only been open for 4. You're going into our 5th month.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So this one's still new car smell, but so we happy birthday to us.
Actually,
So anyway, so we were looking for this location, right?
It's
so
5 months and 3 days, actually.
Yeah. So we were looking.
It's big.
He got my fact checker over here.
Yeah.
I saw him counting on his hand.
I was like, luckily it wasn't too high. I didn't have to take my shoes off to get that high.
Yeah. Well, so we found this building, and we loved that it was this diamond in the rough. I mean, it was like the ugliest thing on the block. It was just in really rough shape. It had been used for a use that was really anti what we were like. People had been kind of granite countertops in the thing, which is kind of a messy business. And there weren't any analogous uses between that business and what we're doing, meaning utilities all need to be upgraded. The building is just, no customers would ever visit this place, so it was just kind of like a utilitarian warehouse kind of junk place.
Right.
And so when we kind of dove in to put our arms around it and say, hey, we're going to turn this into a sterile, food safe, home, like that was just such an overwhelming task. And but the thing that made it really fun was it was inherently custom. Because of the odd nature of the two buildings and because of the odd configuration of things, it was sort of implicit. The character was just inherent in the project. Okay. And so that's something that we'd always looked for from the beginning, because we could have spent less time and money and opened ourselves in just a vanilla, and I use my quote fingers here on radio, which is poor manners, but sort of a vanilla strip mall kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. Like in an industrial park. Yeah. There are many buildings like that around, and they might meet your needs in terms of like utilities and ceiling height and square footage, but they just didn't. It was not the kind of place we wanted to put down our roots and say, hey, this is home base.
Yeah, they lacked the character part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we started getting into the project, we did like all of the work. We would bring in friends that were licensed and knowledgeable. Right. They would provide the brain space and tell us what to do and how to do it and make sure things were done correctly. But then really it was Jason and I and other member of our squadron, Dylan D. Miguel. Yeah. He was like, the three of us kind of came in and just did all the grunt work. So carry heavy stuff from the truck to the site.
Yeah. We'd finish up a work day at the other site at like 5 o'clock and come over here to work till at 1 or 2 in the morning by spotlights, floodlights. Wow. And then do it all over again the next day. Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird thing because we were running the other place and that was growing. Yeah. So we would get in early to work a full day there, see accounts, be in the market, everything. Right. We would converge at the new location at about 3 in the afternoon. The morning contractor crew, like the skeleton crew that was still doing stuff, they would be leaving. Okay. So we'd get like a briefing on what was going on, and then we would work until midnight. Wow. Okay. And we did that like 6 days a week for like 6 or 7 months. Wow. That's Saturdays dedication. And Sundays. You got to be into it. You got to be bought into it to do that. Yeah, but it was part of the fun though too. It was a grueling pace. It was like the Oregon Trail, and you just put it on the fastest mode the whole way, and then the wheels fall. You forge the river and die. Right, the Oregon Trail. That's awesome. So
Your wagon wheels are all busted and you got dysentery.
Right.
But yes, we kind of got on this grueling pace that I think it took everything we had out of us. But that's also, I think, part of why we dig it so much is because it was an obsession.
Yeah.
I mean, but then everyone supported it too. It's like we had friends work days where it's like we'd put it out, on Facebook with all of our buddies, and Matt Johnson, our head brewer, has got a terrific group of friends that they've all stayed tight since like grade school.
Okay.
And he puts it out to his buddies, and we have 25 people show up here on a Saturday, and it's like they work for pizza.
Yeah.
And beer.
And
We throw a keg out.
Yeah, put a keg out on the patio.
That's the key part.
It's
yeah.
amazing how much work you get done when you got that many friends that are not just there, but they're there because they care, and it's just this terrific association of friends, and you just do it one day at a time.
Yeah.
So, all in all, it took us 14 months from getting the keys to opening it up on opening day.
Yeah.
And it was definitely obsession.
Yeah. But it shows though, because that's there's just something, I don't know, when you pull into this place, it's a neighborhood, because you're in a neighborhood, and with it being an old house, and we'll get to that in a second, but it just feels like you're going to your buddy's house who happened to set up his house into a really awesome brewery. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we kind of had hoped for that, because I think selfishly when we were designing the look and layout, we had the benefit of having done this before.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, look, with Jason's experience, all of us kind of morphed into this from coffee.
Yeah.
And setting up places where we wanted people to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the cafe scene for specialty coffee is like, it's supposed to be slow it down, enjoy your cup, right?
Right.
Understand what's going into it so that you can enjoy it more.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be a space where you can celebrate people's talents. You can, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's the new era of like get to know your barista across the bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so having had that experience, all of us were pretty evenly yoked in that.
Yeah.
And so when we got here, we're like, man, we want to create the spot where we can enjoy what we make, these beers that we love and toil over. We want to create the space where we can sit down and enjoy them the way we would want to enjoy them. Mm-hmm. So, we're really big on trying to get to know your neighbor,
yeah.
Which to us is more important than loud sports on the television. The things that cause you to just zone out, we've tried to kind of minimize things so people kind of have to interact.
Yeah.
And our trick is working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's why a majority of the seats are all communal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Force people to sit with one another and
Yeah.
talk and get to know people, especially in the neighborhood.
That's a good point too, because your patio. I love the patio. Like I love the artwork out there. I don't know who did the artwork.
This
out
guy
there.
right here.
You did that?
Yeah.
All the like graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. That's probably, besides the beer itself, that's probably my favorite part. The patio and the artwork that goes along with it. Yeah.
No, that's that's my alter ego. When I'm not here doing this, I'm doodling or drawing, or
Yeah.
I love large format walls, and had the unique pleasure of getting to travel internationally to paint, and
Wow. Nice.
done quite a bit of work with nonprofits and charities and humanitarian groups. So to go to do a big wall, and you can get something 80 feet wide and 20 feet tall, and you can put color all over it. Short of running this place, that's my favorite thing in this world to do.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. But with the house itself has a story too, right?
Yeah,
Or
and
the
growing.
tap room, I guess.
Yeah.
The what?
Well, let's see.
Go for it.
Well, let's see. So the house, which is now the tap room, original Tempe sort of like legend property, right? So this thing, when it was built, 1952, which for Phoenix is totally ancient,
Right.
in terms of records. Like,
Right, yeah.
you got to go back and look at microfiche film to figure out. It's not that long ago, but
Yeah.
Anyway, so for Tempe, it's super old. The property used to go all the way to what's now Tempe Town Lake, but at that time was just an active, salt river basin.
Okay. Yeah.
But a flowing river and a real ranch property. It was built by Harry Mitchell and his father, who today in 2017 is a congressman for Arizona, and his son Mark Mitchell is the current mayor of Tempe.
Oh wow.
And so It's funny that the house was the home of two Tempe mayors that are father and son.
Right.
And so Harry's actually, he was here for the opening ceremony and cut the ribbon for us on opening night.
Nice.
And it was a total honor to have him.
Flies in all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's a Tempe, he's a Tempe guy, like, and just has an incredible legacy in this town. And so he's brought by his old photo albums and shown us the pictures of that proud moment on the front steps when when he's got his first Easter with his family in the home, and you can see in the periphery of the photographs, like you can see we went painstakingly to maintain the original aesthetic of the house.
Okay.
Though we had to improve it to current code and everything.
Sure.
It was painstaking to maintain the overall impression of the property.
To balance those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so when we see that old picture from, I think 1955, I think it was the oldest one we could find, we've got the picture side by side, and you can just see all the way across Phoenix. I mean, across where downtown is now, and it's just flat as a pancake.
Wow.
And so now you look at that horizon, and you can't even see there because you've got all these high-rise buildings. And it's just such a cool snapshot of time to be like part of a continued story, on a property that's had so much impact.
Right.
So that part's kind of a thrill to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And for Phoenix, totally unique. For a master planned area, I mean, I grew up here, and there was that master planned psychosis that happened when I was a kid, where it's like every school I went to was brand new the year I went to it when I was growing up.
Okay.
Not just for no other reason than the city was expanding, and everything's brand new. There's a new shopping center on every other mile. There's a new, pharmacy and a new everything, right. And everything looks the same. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of grow up, when you grow up here, there's that thing of like, there is no history. There's no like connection to the past.
Right.
Simply because of the time period with which I grew up here. So to have a little bit of an anchor point in history is a total thrill.
Yeah.
I mean, there's entire sections of the valley that are like 2007.
Right.
I mean,
that's where I live.
If it is old, they're tearing it down and rebuilding.
Yeah, it was a farm in 2010 or whatever it was, and it's like, that's just so amazing to me that such a big and beautiful place like Phoenix is just such an infant, in terms of just the timeline. So
and it's still expanding too. I mean, I live at like the 17 and like the 10, like the Norterra area, and everything's brand new up there. And it's just, I talked to people they're like 5-10 years ago, none of that stuff was up there. Yeah. So it is cool that you guys have that piece of history here. And the brewery itself, like the building it's awesome. You were telling me that you basically stripped it down to nothing and did this all yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gutted the whole thing, cleaned it with
Remember
the power
that day
sprayer.
we had to power spray the ceilings?
The whole building with a forklift. Yeah, that was pretty nasty.
Like you had to lift it up and you had to be on the.
Yeah, so because it was a granite company before, all the trusses and the walls were just caked in that powdery stuff, and obviously we didn't want that in this environment. So we spent a whole weekend, Saturday and Sunday, with the building completely emptied. It had fresh concrete at that point. We had poured the fresh concrete. But and we had the floor drains in, so that made it a little easier. Yeah. So we just basically power sprayed for 10 hours each day, the complete walls, ceiling, everything, and it was pretty. I mean, we came out of there we were like white, covered in white, like that dust.
You need like those Breaking Bad suits, or like the plastic and the respirators.
But we didn't have them, so we just went for it.
Right. Like this muddy white pumice stone powder was the remnants of the granite stuff. Yeah. And we're taking turns, like driving this forklift so we can get close enough, holding a power washer with some guys wheeling it on the ground, just trying to scrub. Because the more we sprayed, the more we went looking for dust, the more we realized this whole building is dust. Yeah. We might blow the whole building away. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. But then we got it super clean and painted the walls fresh. And, I mean, you saw what it looks like now. So it's kind of interesting to think back because I forgot about that. There's a lot of things we forget about until you sit around and start talking about them.
It's the beer that makes us forget.
That's right. Yeah. Good segue though. So the beer, like my favorite is the Desert Pale Ale. The one I just had was the F.I.T.M. That's a double IPA, right?
Yep.
So what's the deal with it's F.Y.I.T.M. It's an acronym. Dots in the middle. Is there a story behind that?
There is. Do you want the edited version or
what's the rating on this show?
There's a red E on
okay.
So you can
say what
you
if
want.
we're at like festivals or at a restaurant doing a tasting, and somebody asks, it's 5 years in the making.
Okay.
But
well, there's a backstory. You gotta tell.
There
the whole
is.
story.
Okay, so the backstory is, the brewery. Well, you tell the backstory. Go for it.
Jason doesn't seem comfortable with this backstory.
I'm comfortable with the other version. So the other version, before he goes into the story,
go on.
the actual meaning is "fuck you in the mouth," because it's 10%. But the thing I love telling people when I talk about this beer is, although it's 10%, it doesn't drink like a 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you didn't know it was 10%, you'd think it was about 6.5, maybe 7.
Yep.
It's an easy drinker, but it's that one that sneaks up on you and it'll get you.
Yeah, well, I saw it on the board out there. It said, I think it said double IPA. There's another descriptor, and then it said sneaky.
Yeah, it's our favorite descriptor of that beer because it's like every time you sit down and have one, you're like, oh, dang it.
Mm-hmm.
It snuck up on me.
It's so delicious, and then you're 3 in, you're like, oh, man, then you're 3 in.
Where's my Uber?
It does it to us still, and we brew it all the time. We're like, we always forget. We're like, dang it. We gotta go before we get thrown out.
I gotta go home.
What I love most about that name and that beer is that that was something that was really born out of just a group of friends having fun together. You know what I mean? It was like that beer humor where there was really no pretense or no real thought other than just enjoying being together and laughing and saying like, okay, let's come up with this thing. What do we want to do? And one of our buddies just goes, what does it taste like? And he's just jokingly, like after a few pints, he's like, well, it tastes like fuck you in the mouth. That's what it tastes like. He goes, I don't know. Why are we getting so complicated about this? Just call it that.
Yeah.
And we started laughing so hard that we just kept telling that joke.
Yeah.
To ourselves and people would come in and like friends from the neighborhood would come in and check out what we're doing, and we would just start to giggling about it with them,
Yeah.
And then so once we really started thinking about it, another one of our wiser, more sensible friends.
Says, that's cool. Good story.
Much wiser. It says, this should be 5 years in the making with the same acronym. And because we did coincidentally release it on the 5th anniversary of the original business.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And as an anniversary sort of celebration, but we didn't want it to be like a once a year beer. We wanted to do it all the time. And so we kind of officially stuck with that for quite a while. Yeah. The 5 years in the making, and it's much more sensible.
Yeah,
but it's much less fun.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna. And then F.I.T.M too. Like that's cool that you made it into that.
So we've just sort of rocked with that, and at first we kind of like it was just this laugh, and we weren't really taking it very seriously, and then it kind of just stuck, and so now here we are with it 5 years later, and we're like, well, why fight it?
Yeah.
Give the people what they want.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So we just went with it.
But no, it's fantastic. I really like that. And you're right, it's smooth. It doesn't, but it's sneaky. So when I first had a drink of it, I was here, and I don't know, I get nervous about I just get nervous about a lot of things. I'm a nervous person, in general. But like I need to just take a drink. That was the perfect one. Because I drank half of that and I was like, okay, yeah, everything.
Feeling good now.
Good. Yeah.
So he looks calm and ready.
Smooth sailing.
I know. I hope you guys don't mind me falling asleep up there.
No, you wouldn't be the first.
That's why we have this couch.
Yeah.
This is
So the one I'm just tasting now is the Coffee Brown, which is interesting because Jason, you have you're the coffee guru, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
A resident,
coffee guy.
Right.
A resident coffee guru.
Yeah. So this is fantastic, and I'm usually not a big fan of the Nitro, but man, it works pretty well.
Yeah, it's nice and smooth.
Yeah. So do you guys? So that's your origins were in the coffee industry. So is that still kind of hold true now? Are there connections with what you guys did there, and do you think maybe things allows you guys to do things in a unique way here?
I think so. Yeah. So. Like I've been doing coffee since I kind of got into the coffee industry in 2007, kind of when that whole specialty coffee scene was somewhat starting. It wasn't in Arizona for sure. It was like, you got Stumptown out of Portland starting up, and Intelligentsia and some of these other ones, PTs in Kansas starting up. And it really hadn't hit out here. The only thing you had out here was like Starbucks and your mom and pops, but I had heard about it and kind of researched it and dove into it. And so I've been doing coffee since then. That's how I met these knuckleheads. And I mean that with like 100% love. And that's kind of how our relationship started, through Cartel. So I was working with Cartel at the time, when I met these guys. But, I mean, they've obviously brewed the Coffee Brown for a little while, because of the affiliation, with Cartel and being able to have the coffee there. But when we transitioned to this place, we still wanted to do that beer because it's a delicious beer, and we wouldn't stop. So we're just kind of sourcing some different beans now, and very similar to what we did before, but with just a different roaster.
Okay.
And so the cool thing about the Coffee Brown is it's never always the same.
Okay.
And what changes is the coffee that's in it. So we try to go with the fresh crop for the year, and then it just so happens that so far it's worked out that it's the same coffee we use for our cold brew program here.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of similarities there, and it's kind of cool where the Coffee Brown base recipe is always the same, but then the origin of the bean and the process changes based on what's available and how we produce it and merge it into that tasty beer. I mean, I love it. It's delicious. And so I don't know. We that was kind of the thing when we were sitting around building this thing out for hours and months. Is we started this other thing because Dave, like Dave said before, he was one of the owners in Cartel, and that's how we met. And my passion, his passion for coffee. We didn't want to stop that, and we didn't. And it makes it so much easier to produce this beer when we have the resources of doing the cold brew and having the coffee on hand all the time. So we brew cold brew every week.
Okay.
We have clients out there for that too. So
just straight cold brew.
Just 100% cold brew, nothing added to it. Which
that's Sidekick? Is that Sidekick?
Sidekick Cold Brew, yeah. So the beautiful thing about it is we have all this equipment, and it's very similar. And it was kind of a no-brainer for us not to tap into that market that we had a background in already. And we have a ton of beautiful equipment that's nice and easy to cross over into. So it just made sense. And so that was what that was born and is what has helped make Coffee Brown what it is today. Yeah. In my mind. I mean, everybody else may have their own story about it, but the beer's never not been good, but I think it's probably the best Coffee Brown it's been, just with the equipment we have and now, and just the passion behind it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. Like I could drink this in the morning and not even care that there's beer in it. Not that I would ever care there was beer in anything.
The guy was telling me the other night he had 2 or 3 of those, and he texted me. It's like a mutual friend in the industry. He's a chef, and he texts me, and he's like, "Man, I was up till 3 a.m. He's like, "But the good news is I didn't have a hangover because the coffee kicked in." And he's like, "But I was up till 3 a.m. because I had 3 pints of it."
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, there you go."
Yeah, it's like killing the issue before the issue even happens. Yeah, it's genius. That is actually genius. Yeah,
that's the morning beer.
Right.
Great neutralizer.
Yeah. So one thing. So I moved out here in 2008, and I feel like the craft beer scene out here has exploded since then, right? So I go up to Flagstaff a lot. My in-laws live up there. So I think in 2011, there was 2 or 3 breweries up there. Now there's 7, 6, 7, 8.
I think the numbers just came out last couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
For the end of the year.
Yeah.
I think there's 92 license holders now.
Wow.
Now that includes restaurants and anyone who produces.
Right.
But it's still, they all count.
Right.
I mean, I think in that same time period, you're probably talking about 15 or so license holders.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Right.
I mean, it's just amazing growth.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a couple of things working in step with that. Just craft beer in general has progressed because of terrific beer science. I mean, availability and variety of hops. That market's booming.
Okay.
The rules and regs for Arizona that the Arizona Beer Bill did, I think that's been in effect now for a year. I think that went into effect last July.
Okay.
The efforts that sort of originally pioneered by Four Peaks, but then the whole state got sort of behind the issue, which was career mapping for the beer industry. There were some pretty restrictive rules and regs for being a manufacturer. It was basically like illegal to be successful beyond a certain point.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so it was kind of scary to start a business and be like, the law is not on your side. If if you're successful up to a certain point, they're going to stop you. And so even though that point is way out in the distance and it's kind of a big number,
yeah,
most people would be deterred from even beginning.
Right.
And so a lot of good people fought and got together on both sides of the table to kind of career map out the whole thing and say, what's the real issue? How do we navigate through it? And then, what's good for jobs in Arizona? What's good for the industry?
Yep.
And it's kind of amazing, really, the pent-up demand for our population, but also geographically, we're a terrific shipping hub. I have a feeling that Arizona's not even scratched the surface on what it can do for this market.
Okay.
As compared to Denver or Southern California, which are, I think, socially and professionally very similar areas.
Beyond the beer industry, you're saying?
Yeah, just in culture, types of businesses, types of things that influence like what goes on in population.
Yeah.
I think Colorado's up in the mid 300s in terms of license holders, with a population 1/4 the size.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So for us in the industry, we look at our friends and our family and our town, like who's going to support us. But then really when you compare our area to other areas, you're like, well, how many breweries is too much? Mm-hmm. At some point, you look at it and go, well, how do I gauge this? How do I try to figure out where I am in the big concert of life? How does this fit in? And so you look at these sort of analogous areas and go, well, how many breweries could be here
without oversaturation
from a market standpoint? And so when you look at those other areas that are similar in a lot of ways, and you look at how many breweries that area can support, we're not even, I don't dare guess on how many we could have, but it could be way more. More than double, more than triple what we currently have.
Well, because of population size and like land area wise.
Oh, yeah.
Phoenix,
so spread out.
The metro area is huge.
Yeah. And people are supporting it. Yeah. Because they're getting on board with the idea that it's not just the beer, though that's where our passions lie, but it's an opportunity to get together. Yeah. It's a whole different Friday afternoon. It's a whole different Saturday. Right. Because it's, when we can sort of unplug from our devices a little bit and we can connect with each other, we realize that that's way more fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so that's what we try to spend a whole lot of time doing. And then it's fun when you can get together with your buddies and like reduce that barrier to entry for having a connection, and so it's simple. We're not reinventing the wheel. But anyway, the industry's kind of become symbolic of that. Whether or not it deserves it is to be determined. But
I just saw something the other day. I don't know if you saw, but Tucson is getting ready to, was it 5 or 7 new breweries this year that are supposed to be open now?
In the Phoenix New Times.
Yeah, like in Tucson. So Tucson's blowing up. That's where I'm from. I grew up down there, but I was reading that and I was like, wow, that blows my mind because I grew up in Tucson my whole life. I've only been up here maybe 6 years, and I go down to visit my parents, but I'm like, there's still breweries down there that obviously I haven't been down as much but there's still breweries I haven't even been to down there. And there's 7 more getting ready to open this year. It's like, wow.
Yep. I always see a lot opening up. Great. Like on Instagram, you'll see Dillinger's open. Yeah. What was that, Pueblo Vito or something?
Yeah, Pueblo Vito. Yeah.
So, that's, and Flagstaff too. I think Flagstaff has kind of leveled off. I think it was Dark Sky opened most recently. That was like 2 years ago. But yeah, man, I love it though.
Yeah,
I love
it's really great. Yeah, and the Tucson scene is really vibrant, and there's just a really committed group of folks that are doing really cool things, and but Phoenix is the same way. And it's really cool to get to know these folks because in some industries you might look at that and think, oh, I don't want a competitor like on my street.
Right.
Man, we cheer it on. We're like, let's do this because there's that whole thing of. That when the tide rises, all the buoys go up together. Yeah. And the truth of it is like even us on our best day, our volumes are still so micro brew that we're all cheering on the same team. We're all cheering for craft brew, which is and there's room for everybody. And so that's the fun part about it is instead of competing with other people, you collaborate and you say, hey, instead of us arguing over a territory, let's do a beer together.
Right.
And that's totally unique.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about craft in general, no matter what industry you're in, is if somebody's on the same street as you or not, it pushes you to be better in your craft, not in like a competitive way, but in that passion way, man, those guys are great, but we got to do something new and different. And that's the whole thing about craft, is reinventing, redoing, and creating something that's maybe never been done before, like as far as ingredients or flavors, but also getting better. And whether it's making coffee or making beer on that craft level, it's always pushing you to do the best you can and hang out with your buddies and do these collaborations and brew a beer that neither of you have ever done before, and then throw a big party and release it. And that's the fun part, all of it, of the craft scene in general.
Yeah.
Well, and that part too isn't just Phoenix, though. We do as much as we can to help foster and support that, but it's emulated to the highest levels. I mean, last year, to commemorate the beer bill we were talking about, we got invited out to go brew with Stone out in
nice.
The primary hub in Escondido, and they had just opened their new location at Liberty Station. And so to commemorate Liberty Station, but also to do something for Arizona, we got invited to go out there and brew a beer with them. So being Stone, Arrogant Bastard kind of being their like front running like label, they wanted to do the biggest bad boy on the block, so we did a Belgian quad with pomegranates and coffee. Wow. The philosophy behind the recipe was a big, bold beer that was totally drinkable. And so it was just a ton of fun. Those guys are just the best. And so we called that one The Will of the People.
Okay.
And so we did that as a special release for this last year. So when we released it here at was it
Strong Beer
last year, Steve Wagner came out, as the CEO.
No,
technically this.
Yeah, so I think
Stone?
so. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the owners.
Yeah.
I don't know his title.
Yeah. Owner, resident.
Anyway,
badass.
hell of a guy. Came out and and cheersed us on the thing, and just such a testament to they're a huge company,
right?
And they've been at the game for a very long time, and people that you just revere as experts. And so for them to acknowledge that the beer scene's happening one pint at a time, not one semi-truck at a time, is, I think, just a really cool picture of the industry, where you look at guys sort of that have made it, again, using the quote fingers on the radio. But, it's just so cool that, sometimes you think of big businesses as people that have made it where they're sort of up on their... they look down on the rest of us from their penthouse suite, so to speak.
Right.
But that's really not the case in our experience in this thing. It's like the people that are the best at what they do are the ones that most intimately get that it's one at a time, and that connection is what's valuable, and it's to be respected and to be like fostered in a group of other people.
Yeah,
it's totally badass.
That's pretty awesome. That's what I've noticed from the craft beer industry. I haven't had much experience in the wine industry out here or coffee, but with beer, it's just, I was amazed at how close everybody is. It's not a matter of like, oh yeah, I support you, and then behind your back, like, I hope these guys crash and burn. People genuinely want you to be successful, because you're helping the industry, you're helping that Arizona craft beer scene and craft beer in general.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and it's fun, and it's I think for a lot of us the reason we got into it. We've said it many times that you wouldn't be in craft beer if you didn't daydream more than the average person. Because there's just too many hours. It's a lot of hard work, but we're kind of gluttons for that type of punishment. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys are, because your beer is awesome. I love it.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. What do you think Arizona does unique? What do you think we do different than, or I guess kind of apart from other people? Is there anything you think?
Definitely. It's a really good question on the spot.
I know. Whoa. Is there a timeout button? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there's an easy button.
Pause.
Well,
Well, speaking of your favorite beer, the Desert Pale Ale,
yeah,
we use a organic agave syrup, and that's, the what's the word I'm looking for? I've only had one cup of coffee.
Do you need to fuck him in the mouth?
Yeah, I need a lot to get me going in the morning. I mean, physically.
That progressed quickly.
What kind of show is this?
Things got
no.
weird
So
quick. Sorry
we use
about
the organic agave syrup that obviously is from this area, the
like
Southwest.
A native plant.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. The Southwest, and I think that's what's cool about a lot of breweries around the country is using. I mean, obviously, a lot of ingredients that you can't get locally, but a lot of them using ingredients that you can get locally, like whether, you're going to a local farm to pick oranges or whatever you want to put in your beer, plums, and using them from not just going to the supermarket or, Costco or something to get bulk, but like actually going to the farms here locally and using the agave syrup in this beer that's, from the Southwest and other things like that. I think is unique, and it makes everybody unique. Like we can get, produce or fruits and vegetables that maybe we can't get out here from somewhere, but why not use what your resources you have here and then give back to that local farmer or community?
Yeah.
Reason why we picked a neighborhood, the community aspect and giving back, whether it's buying, a truckload of oranges for a beer, or when we did a beet beer, was it last year, something like that, and we got all of our beets from a local farmer, the same guy that picks up our spent grain.
Okay.
And so it's that that circle of life thing, where we get the beets from him, put it in a beer, he gets a couple growlers of it and he loves it, and then he picks up our grain and then feeds it to his his chickens and uses it for compost, and it's like then he grows the beets again this year for us to do that beer again, and it's like it's that cool community thing, and continually to do projects with local people like that, I think is what makes this industry also unique and what sets different breweries apart from each other, but also the same mission. And I'm probably just now as caffeine's kicking, I'm just rambling, but
yeah, you're doing good.
But it says the guy that's had 4 F.I.T.Ms. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He hasn't. I swear they're just taster glasses. But yeah, so I think that's what makes different breweries unique, and seeing what different stuff and ingredients they can get locally and use and create these unique recipes.
Yeah. Nice. And I like the I think people are I feel like there's kind of a revolution going on right now where people are wanting more handcrafted things, whether it's beer, coffee, whatever it is, clothing. I mean, like State 48 with the local apparel. I think people are kind of understanding like technology is great, but like this is the F.I.T.M talking, but artificial intelligence, right?
Great name for a beer, actually.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, just put me on a footnote in the descriptor. Yeah, but I think it's great, and I think that's one of the reasons like people are really getting into craft beer is because there's that passion, and you guys are obviously putting the passion into it, So, I think it's great,
Yeah, there's that pursuit of authenticity that I think is a very real thing. I mean, I think most of us, we're let's see, I'm 34 now, and so there's this time period of change where it's like I didn't even have a typewriter in my a typing class in school until I was in high school.
Okay, yeah.
And now it's like I got my son that's 6 years old can use an iPhone. And it's just unbelievable the technology difference. And so there's that you're just inundated with images and it's quick and it's fast and you've just got these wonders of the universe that are at your fingertips all the time. But there's sort of while that exists, there's also I think this dichotomy of you've got the world at your fingertips, but it's just through a screen, and then you've got to go looking for authentic like human interaction. You've got to seek it out. Yeah. It's not implicit anymore as part of your just day to day. Right. And so I think that there's a recalibration there socially where you value it more. You're like, man, I value sitting down. I enjoy sitting down and getting to know another human, like face to face, not like through a screen. Right. And And so I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Is to try to strive for that balance. So if you can do it over a pint or a good cup of coffee or whatever it is, I mean, that's just lubricant for the social experience.
Yeah.
And so that's a really cool thing. I love that that's happening.
Yeah, and you guys are fostering that too. Like you said, you don't have, the fights on. You don't have the football games on. And I don't even see. Do you guys have any games, like any board games or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, and
those are good things.
We're not necessarily like to the exclusion. I mean, we've got a screen and we throw on a game when we want to put on a game.
Yeah.
But so it's not to the exclusion of certain things that are fun socially, but it's the kind of thing where we're not intentionally creating distraction. You're intentionally trying to create something fun to do.
Right.
And if sometimes something fun to do is you get 100 people in a room and yell at the TV.
Right.
There's a game on, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's super fun.
Yeah.
But just as a general like atmospheric thing, we're trying to create an environment where people can enjoy each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys have some events, right? You got music. I'm really interested to learn about the Randalls.
Yeah.
The Randall, is that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What is that?
So, standing on the shoulders of giants, that's credited to Dogfish Head.
Okay.
That device. But really, it's just an ingredient filter. So, when we hook up a keg, we can do anything on demand. So, we hook up a keg to our tap system as you would traditionally in any bar. But what we do is we sort of splice the line and put in what looks like a pool pump filter, but it's all sanitary and everything.
Yeah.
And there's a series of sized filters inside of this tube.
Okay.
And so we can jam this thing full of fresh fruits, herbs, spices, candy,
whatever.
I mean, it's a constant experiment, a chronic experiment is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But we can jam all kinds of different ingredients that are in there that wouldn't survive the packaging process. Like the flavors are sometimes really delicate. So one of our most noteworthy ones is it's a take on a Manhattan. So we put all the herbs that go into Angostura bitters. We put whiskey-soaked oak chips in there to get that wood smoke flavor. Our original recipes we used a rye amber beer.
Okay.
So all the ingredient components sort of broken down into their most basic form are in this filter, and then we garnish it with an orange, and so you get a pint of beer that it's still beer, but it has this presentation that's totally craft cocktail.
Wow, interesting.
And so, but the thing of it is you couldn't brew that beer and put it in a keg or put it in cans or bottles or anything because the flavors would just dissipate too quickly.
Okay.
And so sometimes people say drink your beer fresh, like anything with hops in it, like where hops are part of the flavor profile. You want to drink it as fresh as possible because what that brewer spent a lot of time and money to source ingredients that have an extra little unique character. If you wait 6 months or 12 months, that character starts to just mellow out and you lose it. So some beers are meant to be kept and some are meant to be consumed fresh. And so this Randall thing, the flavors don't even last one day.
Okay.
And so in the very street art sense of it, it's kind of like you got to be here to check it out.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that can be saved and put on the shelf and shared, in that kind of way. It's like you got to show up to participate like right now because tomorrow it's not going to be here.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of work on our part because we're constantly using that as an environment to try out new experimental flavor combinations. I mean, this is really the proving ground for a lot of things we're trying to do.
Okay.
Is we just sit at the bar and drink this stuff one pint at a time and get feedback.
Right.
And sometimes the recipes are a total disaster. Right. And sometimes they are just absolutely, I can't believe how good this is.
Yeah.
But I think most of the folks that come in and check it out quickly learn that it's the experiment is part of the fun.
Okay.
Because they get to be a part of something that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And that's ground zero for flavor, testing.
Yeah.
So.
That's pretty cool. And you guys do those
every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
So every Wednesday night we tap at 5:00.
Yeah.
Every week.
And it's funny, like all the regulars show up at like 4:45, and they're like, "Is it ready? Is it ready?"
Yeah.
Like, it's 5. It's 5. And it's like they may not even be their style of what they're like normally would drink, but they come just to get at least one 13-ounce glass of it, just so they could say they've had it, and whether they tweet about it or put that on the interwebs, but they just want to be here to experience it, even if like we're using a beer that's not their favorite style. They just want to say that they had it and experience it because every week's different, and it's you can go to a lot of breweries and get like their core lineup, and maybe once in a while a one-off beer that doesn't last very long. But like every week you're getting a one-off beer.
Yeah.
At the same brewery. Like, I mean, we hang out here all the time, not just because we work here, but
right.
It's that community. We like meeting new people, but it's the same with those guys. They come every Wednesday.
Yeah.
To check it out.
Is it grown too? I mean, you see new people every single week? I can imagine.
We started
it's a lot of fun.
At our old facility. It only had 8 seats.
Oh, yeah.
And so this little tiny room with 8 seats would have 40 people in it, just like shoulder to shoulder.
So you did it back then too?
We started it there, trying to see what happened, and it took off. So we said, well, let's not stop it. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
And Wednesday nights have become like one of our busier nights because of that.
Yeah. Because I don't think anybody else is doing it. I've never heard of it until I came here. Like that's something completely unique to me. You said Dogfish Head does it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've never heard of anybody out here doing it.
Yeah, you know, it's around, but to do it in a consistent way, like I said, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to go shopping every Tuesday to buy, not only write a recipe, but then go shopping for it, source the materials, pre-soak all the things. I mean, it's a lot of work. And so to make it we wouldn't do it if we didn't think it was super fun. Yeah. Because it's like most things around here, kind of a labor of love. So to do it consistently requires a bit of purpose.
Yeah. I got to get down here for one of those. I live like, it's kind of funny when you can live in the same metro area as somebody, but like I feel like I have to get a flight from where I live to here. You know, it's so
pun intended, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. As I'm just finishing up my flight. Yeah. But no, I think it's great. I got to get down here for one of those. So what else? You guys have music too, right? Isn't there a guy who's here pretty consistently?
Yeah, we've been doing shows like garden shows. So to give a description of the patio, we've got this whole house, and then we've got about a 80-foot gap to our back brewery building, and the back brewery building is like twice the height of the other thing. So in between is this garden space, canopy trees, kind of decorative beach lights over the whole thing. And so we created the back porch of the house kind of as a natural stage. So we take down the handrails and whatever else and can put bands up on the thing. And so far it's just been a totally one-of-a-kind experience because you've got this like backyard garden atmosphere that you can have a full band playing, you know, into this kind of garden show. So it's kind of the fact that it's outside is kind of unique. Mm-hmm. So we've been having a lot of fun with that. But you know, I think true to the spirit of being in the neighborhood is we don't necessarily have an agenda for how that's going to be used. I mean, our purpose was to create an atmosphere to enjoy the thing. So if friends and musicians and performers of all kinds come here and they want to use this as a venue, we try to make that available. Yeah. And so far we've had a really cool response with people wanting to play music. So Walt Richardson and his band are just unbelievable musicians. I mean, just some of the best I've ever seen live. They play here the first Thursday of every month. Okay. So they bring the full band. It's kind of a reggae rock thing, but it's a ton of fun. Yeah. I mean, they know how to put on a show for sure.
Nice. And I think the way that it's set up too, I would think you would get pretty good sound. I'm not like a sound expert at all, but with the 3 walls, like you've got, I mean, you got one open side, but 3/4 walled. Yeah.
Yeah. So the sound coming out of there is accidentally, it's one of those happy accidents. Right. It's just kind of perfect. We got those like canopy trees and everything that kind of help soak up sound and the split face block. Yeah. You know, in this back, it just sounds incredible. Yeah. So we've really been enjoying that.
It's like the greatest keg or house party you could ever have, right? Your parents' backyard, right? Pretty much. When they're out of town, that's what we like.
Yeah, and the cops aren't going to break it up.
Right. Yeah, nice.
Hopefully.
Maybe someday if it gets really big, right? Yeah. Then you can just pour into here. But guys, thanks for joining me, man. This has been pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you guys are ever in Tempe, how do people find you, like on Earth and online?
So on planet Earth, we're located Tempe, Arizona. Most of our stuff is Facebook and Instagram. Okay. So it's just the Shop Beer Co. Okay. Is our handle. And get Google.
Yeah.
The Google's corner, First and Hardy.
All right. Thanks for listening to another episode. just announced that the shop signed a distribution deal with Hensley Beverage Company, so you're going to start to see their beers on tap at bars and restaurants. So look out for those. Go to the brewery, though. Nothing better than getting it straight from the tap. If you guys are liking these episodes so far, do me a big favor. I'm trying to spread the word and would love your guys' help. Leave me a rating and review on iTunes, and tell a friend. Tell a friend who you think might enjoy the show. Next episode, pretty stoked about this. Local coffee company that 3 times in a row named the best coffee roaster in Phoenix by Phoenix New Times, and was also named the best coffee in Arizona by the Food Network. So stay tuned. 2 weeks down the road, another episode coming out. Until then, always remember, stay awesome. Remember, stay awesome. Remember, stay awesome. Remember,